Peace in Islam and greetings. Today we're gonna start a new series, and about the most infamous and famous for some historical event of all times, known as the African slave trade. I don't know how much parts it's gonna be. We're just gonna tackle it. We're gonna start part one, which gonna be some basics of what we're dealing with. So let's start. We say in the old prayer, the Chpt, the Greeks and Hebrew versions. You got the Chpt version. The Chpt version show Maria in the old way. Which almost always stand for Master Yahweh. While the Greek MSS has simply Cereus, like we get Christ, i.e. Lord. So two versions, Morris, Maria, and Cereus, Christ, both meaning Lord. You got the Christ or you got the more. And those two versions is what we're dealing with spiritually. We'll come back to these in later videos. But it's going to be a synopsis of what we're going to be dealing with. Now we see Septimus Cereus, the African emperor. And what we know is you have Moors in Africa. We know today Africa Major. And they became emperors of Rome. And just like you see in the Spanish, you see names with place names in it. So you have Septimus Africanus, the Septimus of Africa. And you got somebody who would be John de Florida. John of Florida. These are the same practices. So the term Africa became used as to Moors who use Roman customs as in naming. You can really consider it Latin culture. We ain't gonna get too deep into that. But I'm just going to just showing you where the term, calling the name Africa and America, you're going to use both as synonymous for a certain tribe who were in Rome at that time. But since their influence, being an emperor, you can see how that spread throughout the empire. And you have today an Africa diaspora. You have what we dealing with right now, an African slave trade, and they're using that term so ambiguously. And that's a dangerous thing, not to have the details and know the origins of what we're saying. And for legal purposes, it's very important to know jurisdictional purposes, mental and physical, spiritual jurisdiction. After the Revolutionary War, a group of slaves created a maroon quote unquote colony, reconstructing a protected village of several houses and planting rice fields in a clearing near the Savannah River. And these towns already been built and been there, and people by Moors. When they find it, they give it the story that these so-called slaves must have run away from their masters and built it. These English um, so-called researchers. The term maroons came from the Spanish word quimaroons or cimarrones, um, a term for so-called runaway slaves. And that ain't necessarily true. Again, the English researcher don't know what we really talking about. Carlos V had treaties with certain Moors and it didn't have treaties with certain Moors in America, namely the Mandinga of the West, Peru, Inga. And other tribes, Moorish tribes, used to go to war, attack, about war. And he gave them the name Cimarrones because they been not under the treaty that he been under with for peace, to separate it from the Moors he had peace with. That's simple. The Maroon formed a band of so-called black guerrilla fighters called themselves the King of the English Soldiers, and they've been under those treaties with the Moors in English, Morocco, England at that time. Early treaty between Morocco and England been these Moors who were fighting on this with the English flag. They were under treaty. It's like we see in Negro Fort, they had the red flag with the British Jack. They've been also Moors who've been under that treaty fighting against Spaniards or Portuguese. And they had the Marabouts with them too. By 1787, the Maroons posed a serious threat, having attacked plantations and troops. You see, Moors used to always been trying to go free the other Moors who've been in the Roman plantation jurisdiction. So that the Georgia legislature sent its militia to destroy their village. Although the missions were successful, killing and wounding some Maroons, many escaped to South Carolina swamps. James Jackson, the commander of the Georgia militia, urged the governor of South Carolina and Georgia to pursue the attack, and these people like James Jackson be Moors too. This be under Rome. This we still dealing with Septimus, Cereus against whoever the Maroons. They crossed the water as Carthage. They stole being themselves. But yeah, James Jackson probably one of them boys too now. Don't let them try to trick you with that. That's war the same thing we dealing with today. We at war with each other more than anything else. And some people don't understand that why these people always at war with each other. We can show you why. It's still the same things going on. The Maroon leader was captured, tried, and hung. His head was severed and placed on a pole as a brutal warning to his followers. You see, Roman shit. Many instances of attacks by Maroons continue to be reported. And even to this day, these same Maroons, they in the cities and out in the countries still. But all they give them is jail now. And they still don't care about United States or their laws or nothing. They still live free like that out here. We calling them criminals and stuff. But that ain't always the case. The ones who ain't committing crime still got that mindset as in, like, I come to Earth, this is my land. Ain't too much from what other people gonna be trying to tell them. And that's why they call them Maroons. They outside. That's why I call them really outside the agreements between them more than Christians. And their own country. They say the ethnic racial isolates of reputed partial Indian origin. And that's how they look at that. But all they're saying is these people, they look like black people, but we know they ain't from what we call Africa today. We know goddamn well that according to our records, that's what these people who make this map know. They put Delaware Moors, one of the tribes. At least the coastal elite in the Latin kingdoms. That's why all these kingdoms, Latin terms, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, all that Latin. So from the Latin kingdoms of the eastern seaboard of these L's. Louisiana. It's a strange mix of Roman Carthage. You know the Punic Moors, they spoke a Latin, Western Moorish Latin. So it's a strange mix. In the series, you're going to see how all this happened. The trade routes of 1763. Coming in these ports, these old ports, these trade routes been going on. The Gulf Coast, definitely. And then the coastal seaboards because we're dealing with trades. All trades. And whoever brought us, they were already looking to steal this empire. They were looking like, damn, we got this shit set up already. And this lead us to today. All these got stories, that's why they got a date. When you go look up the story, you'll see what happened in more detail. So now I'm about to go back. At this point of the future of the Canaries become entangled. So now the two Canaries will be misunderstood. In reality, the conquest undertaken was enormous since it was about subduing the south of a continent which kept the old name of Africa to disguise that it was also known as the Indies. They served in different campaigns, to which certain witnesses allude in the lawsuit by Diego Colon when he had the information. Given that the discoverer did not know how to wage war, the Catholics have sent many armed people to subdue the land by force under the command of a certain governor whose name was omitted. So you see, Christopher Columbus ain't been a fighter. He just been the one who did all the registration and recording of what it's going to be now. That's the magic. He just been the magician. The blessing, one who come and bless it and converted everything. But they've been saying it, they've been having wars too, but they omit from history. After that the admiral populated the terra firma has been won and populated. So that's what they've been saying. Even with the people who's, they can't depopulate the entire land and they ain't repopulate the entire land. They try to make it look like they do, like they did. All they doing been dealing with the states, changing the names of people. They kill the old people and give them a new name. Now you got new people there who under your control. They control. So at the expense of the king and of SSAAs, saying stuff like that in these documents, and you never know who these is. That's how you know you're doing wrong. You hide shit like that. Confirming Arias Perez, son of the Martin Alonso Pinzon, by the armies that the king has inhibio to said tierra firma. It's the treaty of, very important when we come into this story, with the story. If anybody talking about the story, African slave trade, they ain't talking about these things that we going through. They ain't telling you nothing. Period. They telling you something from Hollywood. So you see 1480 up there. Very old. Just the Alcobas. Let me show you what you do. See, there was sharing of the, there was a sharing of the Atlantic territories between both countries and a delimitation of the respective spheres of influence. So spiritual jurisdictions, spheres of influence. How you can influence people to think and use your way of thinking of it, stuff on the earth. Because again, at the end of the day, you get draw pay from your God. It's like every other human being on the planet. So when you agreeing with other humans, that's spiritual jurisdiction. Y'all agree on that together. And then when there's got large amounts of people agreeing on one thing, that's the multitudes. And that's how power change. Simple shit like that. And people be playing games with these things like that, making these claims, even if those certain claims get them popularity or get them paid, so-called paid. But they gonna tell your children stupid shit like that. Very important for them to have an understanding of themselves. So with the exception of the Canary Islands, right? All territories and shores disputed between Portugal and Castile stay under Portuguese control. Just like this page, but when you click this, they're going to take you to modern day Canaries. They're going to take you to modern day Guinea with its gold mines. Madeira, discovered in 1419. The Azores, they'll take you all overseas. Cape of Verde. Portugal also won the exclusive right of conquering the Kingdom of Fez. So for people who just finding this video and they ain't looking at the old videos on this channel, all these in America, including the Kingdom of Fez. So we're looking at what's said in this. In 1480, this already been being said in this document. Eliminating. Castile rights over the Canary Islands were recognized while Portugal won the exclusive rights of navigating, conquering, and trading in all the Atlantic Ocean south of the Canary Islands. Thus, Portugal attained hegemony in the Atlantic, not only for its known territories, but also for those discovered in the future. Castile was restricted to the Canaries. So, that's why the Caribbean islands became the Indies, West Indies, and everything else became other things because that's how it was. And they admit to that on Wiki, while not admitting to that because you can't really get that out this. I can show you. You see, they say the Canary Islands in the land south of the Canaries. to the Canary Islands. So they talking about on Wiki these islands and the Barbary that's next to it, the land south of it, the land of Moors, Mauritania. Portugal. And these the Azores, Madeira, Cape Verde, that they want you to believe. We can say about these Canaries in the land south of the Canaries. So like this we see the Canaries in the Little Sea, Marpaquena, the terra firma, the firm land. That's what killed them right there, because terra firma showing up with the Canary Islands and all that, and Barbary. And they leave that out on purpose on the wiki when they talking about over there, so I know they be knowing some shit. See, Gran Canaria. The Magdalena River gonna be a part of the series. And the pre-raised map below Copper 2 when they got this fort on the map of the pre-raised map. Shouldn't be there. But they still showing you the Portuguese talking about this as Madeira, Cape Verde. Guinea, Azores, and the Kingdom of Fez. And you see documents like this all over the place. And you see from the following it would appear that slavery had become unknown in Spanish law, except as the condition of a Negro domicile in the Indies. So you see Castile, they're using Spanish. But they know Castile dealt with over here. That's a kingdom, that particular kingdom mostly dealt with over here. And being a boy talking about that, that's very important to know. That people are already over here. And they call them things like African and black, and the reason why ain't really because they thought that we would get the same modern day as maps that put these places in stationary places somewhere else, even called Africa at that time. Again, Rome would have called any more African because that's how they speak. And you see, they talking about to their civil state or capacity, man are considered as natural born subjects of their kingdoms, and as alien or foreigners. 2, as nobles, persons entitled to the rights of nobilities, hidalgos or knights, caballeros, and or plebeians, as laymen and ecclesiastics. So they say different. So much different understanding in history that they'll leave out on purpose and just try to act like that you just a slave or some shit. The distinction to free man and slave, which is found in our law. And they say it is foreign to this treaties. Say it held in private individuals. The Indies, they say, unless it be in respect to the Negroes employed in the Indies and work in the mines. So we dealing with the gold mines of Guinea. like they say on Wikipedia, the mines. All hail and slavery by private individuals, but even as regard the circumstance that is foreign to those treaties. In Denmark, Negro slavery would probably be recognized under the Code of Christian V. And all that just Moorish wars between Moors and Christians and how they deal with the captives and different statuses throughout that time. Also could have had uniforms of slavery. You got serfdom, you got vassalage, different forms. You see they got the Indian Moorish conquistadors that we talked about in earlier videos. See, it's Carlos V. We're talking about Carlos V in this. But you see the Emperor Carlos V. The arms of the Inga. You had Inga all the way from Peru all the way to Africa and in Spain. These Ingas. Man Ingas. Ancient. Lima, Peru. Got red and white too. You see, what they been talking about in these documents as Berbers, Moors, Canaries. They ain't use no modern terms like Venezuelan, Brazilian, Peruvian, Trinidadian. They ain't use those terms. Now they did use Trinidadian, but they did in older versions of that term. We'll get into that later. So you can see both sides of the wall. Depiction of the Metamoros and of the Islamic faith at the bottom. Roman Carthage. Seashell, showing you the traveling aspect. And he can be one of the Moors who've been the Andalusians who been at war with some of the tribes. They've been on both sides. They've been in Colombia and they've been in Grenada. That's why you got all those departments down there in this area. Just like you got the departments on the other side in Andalusia today. Department of the Atlantic. Judging by the sources between the 9th and the 15th century, so we're going before 1492 on purpose for the sake of what we're talking about. They passed through the Americas. Moors first, she put that first because that's who Landis is. The Jews, Vikings, Britons, Normans, Portuguese, Genoese, Florentines, Sicilians, Phoenicians, Catalans, Valencians, Galatians, Basques, Andalusians, English, Scots, and Turks, and Chinese arrived from the Pacific. So a whole bunch of stories about people in America, about what all people are going to try to do is try to make these Moors dark-skinned foreigners from Africa or Europe or somewhere else as slaves, right? And the other people, all these other people who here are mixed with these Moors and shit like that, they want to act like they're the natives or some shit. It's crazy. Like everybody got a story and they got details about this shit. The reason she make this claim because she got detail. Waiting for somebody to kind of act so shorter. So tell them before they worry about you, they worry about themselves, where they come from. They got Britons and England showing you that Ascots that Iraq is connected to that shit. They show that, and it all because of trade. If you won't find the records, find out about the trade of foods and goods, stuff like that. I'll put more first and Jews second because they always been this one and the same. Coming from that Levant area, that east, as Phoenicians and Judeans at that ancient time. You already know the northern parts, Canada and stuff like that, Greenland. That always been ancient to the world. Let's let you know that the whole world ain't nobody believing that. Ain't no nothing on the side of the sea. So ain't no boy from everywhere. I know about the whole earth for a long time. As we read earlier, Columbus been a registrar to come register shit, steal, baptize it. Baptize the land, sending the friars to baptize the people. Which were Moors, for the record. And mixed with all these other people. But I ain't here to do history, this Moorish history, not Catalan. I tell your own shit. Etymology, it is unlikely. The name of this group is derived from the Spanish word Cimarron, meaning wild or untamed. And again, really means somebody who ain't under a treaty or a certain status or understanding. That's all they've been looking at it as. The word usually referred to runaways or castaways. See, and that's more. Castaways are more. Thing because they like the Sultan of Morocco would just like right now. A lot of these Moors free, no matter if under the Sultan of Morocco and paying him the fifth. And that the Sultan will be going around trying to tell them how to run their own kingdom and shit. So the English take advantage of that a lot. That's why you see them with side treaties with a bunch of so-called Native American chiefs and tribes and maroon tribes all over the place because they've been trying to fight the Spanish, so they've been going into the empire, dealing with these tribes who've been either not with the Sharif or far away or more independent and been doing treaties with them. To treaty a piece of friendship, take all those tribes, all these people, and bring them right back into out the status of a castaway because he dealt with Moors in all of the dominions. So anybody. So that been a great act. So he said, less common folk etymology hold that Cimarrones comes from the Teneo word C Maran, meaning the flight of an arrow. The Cimarrones in Panama were enslaved African, quote-unquote, who had escaped from their Spanish masters and lived together as Maroons. So you see, they always try to explain that when they talk about this that way, these Wikipedia people. In the 1570s, they allied with Drake, and we got stories on that too, of England to defeat the Spanish conquest. And Sir Francis Drake revised 1572. Drake described the Seminole as a black people which about 80 years past fled from the Spaniards, their masters, by reason of their cruelty, and are since grown to a nation under two kings of their own. He do talk about a lot of that like that too, but you can tell that he ain't really know nothing. He just talking from his point of view, what he believe. Ain't that he interviewing them, boy, and they give you the interview what they saying. He talking from a third, fourth person position, and they don't seem like they talking using his voice like an author talking about what they believe. Of course, when you read Drake's stories, and but he do call everybody Summeroons. Well, all he dealt with was Summeroons, what he called them in his stories. I like shit. What an African slave trade had. They already here one time, 1572, everywhere. And he been dealing with the king affairs and all that too in the book. Say 80 years past, fled from the Spaniards, their masters, by reason of their cruelty. So he going by, what they going by is, they believe that 80 years earlier the Spaniards brought all these Summeroons here. They saying these dark-skinned people, but they Moors. Say by reason of their cruelty, and are since grown to a nation under two kings of their own, the one inhabited to the west, the other to the east of the way from Nombre de Dios. So again, I make all these stories look stupid, that these enslaved runaways already now got kingdoms and shit still set up. The word Seminole is derived from the Muskegee word Seminole. This may have been adapted from the Spanish word Cimarron, meaning runaway or wild one. Seminole, Seminole culture is largely derived from that of the Creek. The most important ceremony of the Creek green corn dance. Other notable traditions including the black drink and the ritual tobacco, which is important to know. The tobacco rituals. As the Seminole adapted to the Florida environments, they developed local traditions such as the construction of the open-air thatched roof houses known as the Chiquis. So they trying to say they adapted to local traditions as if they made the local people already, right? Displacing you. Historically, the Seminole spoke Miccosukee and Creek. Both Muskegon, showing you all these are Cimarrones and Moors. These Moors, they try and denationalize and displace them even in these writings that you can read. And they tell you what they say that is. And Florida meant at that time the whole South, most like damn near the whole South, and other kingdoms around that. Then we start having amalgamation balls, miscegenation, balls everywhere in these kingdoms. Get into that with the English and what they dealt with. The asiento, which is assent or agreement or contract for allowing the subjects of Great Britain the liberty of importing Negroes into Spanish America. So you see a lot of these Moors who were English, speaking English, operating in the Britain Empire at that time. See, now by ports is an island, so you know they got ports and shipment. So those Moors been bringing a large amount of Moors around, bringing them to these places And what has ended up becoming been, to fulfill a contract, you had these privateers and these buccaneers and all them start to kidnap people. That became kidnapping and try to fulfill these contracts, get paid. And this began just to document that anybody talking about this for reparations or trade or anything, you need this. That's why your boy T.I. they gonna talk to the lawyers of London. Cause they know that's the document that based off importing Negroes into Spanish America. And again, just the fact that these contracts, they've been passing off all kind of different people as these Negroes, tricking them more like fake product, like a fake pair of Jordans. Native tribes, so-called native tribes, that who people don't consider Negroes, but they've been here. So again, we know since the early centuries, plenty different tribes around the world been coming in. They've been getting kidnapped too and getting shipped in and sold as Negroes to fulfill this contract. Asiento. So of course, we dealing with what the nobles dealt with in history, and these stuff like this you gotta know about. Signed by the Catholic King in Rome at Madrid. The underwriter. So this based off this. That's why the Catholic kings, and that's why you're dealing with Spanish America. The Moors of Great Britain and the amalgamated Moors of Great Britain, they had ships and shit, and they had that business and that trade, and they had a lot of relationships with Moors over here. And that's why the Spanish asked them for these Moors to come work for them in their countries, which been in Spanish America. They couldn't even build a damn shit up. They need a workforce. We will get a lot into that in this series, but not in this video. Both infants, Alfonso and Isabella, Portugal and Spain, stayed in Portugal under the regiment of Cereus. That's another word dealing with stuff like Trinidad or Tripoli or Tremison. All these words dealing with three. The Trinity at the village of Mora, the Moorish mother, waiting for the appropriate age. The Catholic monarchs were responsible for all costs of maintaining the Cereus. Hacienda, Spanish word used in colonies of the Spanish Empire to refer to estates with law business enterprises. So we gotta know these terms, we're gonna know the story. In the colonies of the Spanish Empire, so-called, is an estate or a finca similar to the Roman, named by Roman Carthage, latifundium. Some haciendas were plantations, mines, and or factories. We'll get into all those. Many haciendas combine these activities. The word is derived from the Spanish verb hacer, or its gerund haciendo, from Latin facer, meaning to make or making, respectively. Just like fiat, factory, like they say right here. Facility, stuff like that. Say were largely business enterprises consisting of various money-making ventures, including raising farm animals and maintaining orchids. Hacienda. encomienda, labor system used in various former Spanish colonial territories. The encomienda was a Spanish labor system that awarded conquerors with the labor of particular groups of conquered non-Christian peoples, Moors. The laborers, in theory, were provided with benefits by the conquerors for whom they labored. The Catholic religion being a principal benefit, you see, they've been giving them benefits like you would die and get virgins when you go to heaven if you die working on this plantation. Those type of, like we talk about in the beginning, the brainwashing, stuff that can get you to believe the spirit of affluence. Columbus can make all the maps he wants. That means you gotta believe those maps, but they get you to believe it by showing you that in third degree. And so that what been going on over here for a while. The laborers, in theory, were provided with benefits by the conquerors for whom they labored, the Catholic religion being the principal benefit. The encomienda was first established in Spain following the Christian conquest of Moorish territories. And that's the same thing going over here. Conquest of Moorish territories. And later you start to see them call them Summeroons and Maroons when they started to try to put them on the haciendas, known to Christians as the Reconquista, and it was applied on a much larger scale during the Spanish colonization of the Americas and the Spanish Philippines, which they don't hide the fact that they still call themselves Moros today, the ones who fight. Conquered peoples were considered vassals of the Spanish monarchs, and that's what Philip II say, all Indians belong to me. So he basically saying, if you think you that, then you belong to me. You can be here, just don't go by that name, dummy. The crown awarded. We telling you straight up, that's a Roman, if that's the person who think that's who he is. The Victoria de Flanders, this is a very important one in our story. We'll talk about this a good bit. I don't even think they got an English version of this one. So they give you the Spanish one. They say the principal ports of the Empire Colonial Portuguese, the House of Guinea in America, the House of the Indies here, and colonies of Brazil and in Africa and the Indies, in the East and the West Indies. And this is the French and verse that the Flanders. We get into them. You see the factory, the trading post, and look, turn the 5th to the 19th century, like we saw in that doc earlier. Okay. I can't stop. I don't stop the video. I gotta take a phone call right quick. Let me see something. And so you see you see the main character. You see the Latin, which goes into Rome, the place of doers and makers. Simple action. Was the common name for the medieval and early modern eras of an entrepôt, which is essentially an early form of free trade zone and transshipment points. At a factory, local inhabitants could interact with former merchants. So you see, you got the right to go and live or work on these things. Like today, Washington D.C. and its several cross-country factories. First established in Europe, factories eventually spread to many other parts of the world. the Magdalena River, less commonly Rio Grande de la Magdalena, is the main river of Colombia, flowing northward about 1528 kilometers through the western half of the country. It takes its name from the biblical figure Mary Magdalene. It is navigable through much of the lower reaches in spite of the shifting sandbars at the mouth of its delta. Magdalena, very important. See, due to the geographical position of the north of South America, which is North Africa at this time, land of Moors, the Magdalena River was since pre-Columbian time a route towards the interior of present-day Colombia and Ecuador. Several Carib-speaking people such as the Panches, or the Guanches, and the Yarugui ascended through the western bank of the river, while its eastern portion was inhabited by the Muisca, which called it the River Yuma. Likewise, the Spanish conquistadors who arrived today's Colombia, early in the 16th century, used the river to push to the wild and mountainous inland, so to go to the Barbary, where the Moors up the mountain of the Andes. After Rodrigo de Batista's discovery and named the river April 1st, 1501, during the Spanish, look how early that is, from 1492, not even, that show you right there that 1492 ain't even that. You ain't even, like, you have to have been earlier than that if you dealing with registering the 1501 rivers. During the Spanish colonization of the Americas, the river was the only transport link communicating Bogota with the Caribbean seaport, Cartagena, the Indias, and thus to Europe. So they and what we going through, what we about to go through, that this been the main point, and we're gonna show you going into Africa, getting slaves, so-called black slaves, and what I really mean. Instead of you looking at the way they trying to show you today, they try their best to try to show you that in that way. So these are the people of Quito, where they find in the Quito, Ecuador, like Moors in Spain. As we can see, they got gold, and that's what really been about, the gold trade. The iconography of James Matamoros was used in the Spanish colonization of America. So you see, James the Moor killer, not Indian killer, or native killer, or aboriginal killer, or indigenous killer. They call these people by a certain term for a reason, because they know the truth. The truth is out. But again, I'm going to change these adjectives to nouns and hope you believe that. We talk about the Spanish America. They used James Matamoros as a rival force to the indigenous gods and protector of the Spaniards from the indigenous peoples of the Americas. So the indigenous, they use a Moor killer. He was depicted as a conquistador, and we saw that to be earlier. Matamoros, James Matamoros, and its iconography, its symbolism for the whole story of the American conquest. And they got that boy look just alike to show you even more deeper. It's even more deeper than what we're thinking. See, Brazil, the lady of the sea, the queen of the seas. Right on the coast. Look at man back there just like the Sultan of Morocco. And you see like Mardi Gras, the beads, right? To show you that these people have been far and wide on the side. At all ports, we have this ritual. In Charleston, we call it Moja Art Festival. By Moja, Yamoya, Yamaya, all the same word mean Queen of the Sea. And then they follow us with this foolishness right here. Black liberation. But they all gotta sit down and really look at the records. And I know all of them can read Portuguese very well. The records is right in there in Portugal. But the United States did, they popularized what we do out of ignorance to the world. And Moors everywhere follow along. It's really sad because people die. People get displaced, robbed, birthright theft, genocide, people genocide, converted from this foolishness. And see what this ain't want to tell the truth. You can see Lady Crown of the Sea. Just like the port, right? We will get more into that in the next video. The true religion that capitalism steal a lot of this stuff from. You see, like the mermaid, right? The Little Mermaid definitely get into a lot of this stuff, the truth. Just by the fact that the name of the place is called Marpequena, that the Little Mermaid at, the Little Sea, it's just the Caribbean. You see Akshe or X, but we say Ashe today up here. That's the same word, Ashe. And again, like the Little Mermaid said, he was a red Jamaican accent and crab. Talking about Sebastian with the island of Sheba. Let's look that up. I think they say Saba or Sheba. So Sabastan would be island of, or the land of Saba, Sabastan, Sebastian. And we know about the story of San Sebastian. Deal with Moorish history. He served King Triton, and the reason why he served King Triton because the kingdom of Mesa gave vassalage to King Manuel in the real history of the Little Sea. And he been the advisor, the one who will tell Philip that Diego Mirandes tell him that based off that vassalage, he ain't really on it, the land. Despite esteemed position, Sebastian is regularly tasked with watching over Triton's youngest daughter, Princess Ariel, which would be Yuana in the real history. And they show man played a role. You see, it's in Moorish history also the Holy Cross of the Little Sea, Ifni in the Sahara. In modern day, it's all overseas. Spanish for little C. You see, they got Marpequeno in the state of Brazil. They still know they can't really hide it. Some people gonna continue calling stuff that they know. So you still have Moors in Brazil who still know that term and names things. You see the little C already get moved over there with the rest of it as a place name now. So it ain't really the name of a sea no more, like we saw on our research map. Little C. But they show you on Little Mermaid that in the Little Sea you got the crab. He got a Trinidad accent, not a Canary Islands or North African accent, right? So they put the Little Sea right back in that story. See Marpequena right there. And you got one in New Orleans history near that port, showing you Moors from taking that name and using it literally for little seas. So we'll go over some of these and that'll be it. The king was called in the 1500s. We're still in the same time period. We're dealing with King Manuel Alfonso V, I think. The Corem de Eda Larem Marem in Africa, and Mr. Darguim, but not from Guinea. In 1506, he left this title to return to the King of Guinea, dealings Mar in Africa, and Lord of Guinea, and all that is American titles dealing with over here. On the other coast, he was called the conquest and navigation of the trade of Ethiopia, Arabia, Persia, and India. But when he's talking about these titles, he's talking about America. North Africa and America. Because that near, he said, that Quenem de la Remar, the near and the far. This is the name on some of the maps. They talk about the Cabo de la Aguja next to Santa Marta. And I got that map. I got a map that show that. An old map too, like 15 something or 16 something. Next to the Magdalena too, which we're gonna get into. Very important, you know. Discovering, as we have said, did not imply an unknown land. The discovery could include meager territory, so just a friend's house, somebody, a manor, a store, a business, something small, provided that it did not belong to a kingdom of Christians and had no known owner. So you see, they dealing with Rome and Carthage. If it ain't under Roman jurisdiction or under Moorish jurisdiction, then it ain't out for the taking. That's how they looking at it, and it's still to this day like this. And had no known owner. The frequent changes of place names, which are observed in America, are due to the desire not to stumble upon old concessions, which would hinder the adjudication of a new discoverer. In addition, the term discoverer was synonymous with recognizing, even used when referring to registered properties. So that just changed a whole lot of our mind state, knowing that, using that term for different reasons back then. The same as according to Chavez and the other authors, had the coast called the Maranon. So they've been calling whole parts of this America El Maranon, which include the Delta. It is probable that since there were two mines, there were two Rio de Oros, with their corresponding boxador, or timely transfer aimed at racing the borders of Fez, which is why they put all those place names on the other side. Marpequena, Canaries, even Morocco, Fez, these terms. It would be then when the division of the Americas in three crowns, Portugal, Spain, and Morocco, became fashionable, particularly significant, and the heading of the royal cedulas, Juana, see, that have been the Little Mermaid, the daughter of King Manuel, I think. King Manuel or Alfonso, they keep getting them two mixed up. Like the Felipes, was the queen of the islands of the Canaries and of the Indies and Tierra Firme of the Ocean Sea. So we're looking at titles to see these things. The first section includes the possessions of Ferdinand de Peraza, acquired under the lordship regime. They had metallicas, doubles in gold, and other coins of their own. Tierra Firme was never controlled. The regime of voluntary vassalage was maintained, and probably the outcasts. So it's showing you that these Moors had a much more understanding of international law than they laid out to be. Like, this is some wild Indians who don't know about the world. They lying. The occupation remained in settlements, a base for raids. See, they be using some of the Indies, some parts of America to attack other Moorish kingdoms in America as raids and bases and stuff like we did on the other side. Christians and Muslims sharing the dominion of the land, whose inhabitants knew how to handle the Canary and the rest of the Indies. The Colombian colonization of material occupation prevailed. That means in our mind, we start to believe in all this stuff, these fake stories, preceded by dispossession that came next and prolonged in the instrumentalization of the native as a work tool, like we see today, working on corporations, companies, working for everything. Freulen and other sites, sheikways in the New Kingdom of Granada and New Andalusia. I know people who watching this know these is by now, but just for the new people, look how much we gonna see how much land that is. And these sheikways are Moorish kings. We got New Granada, New Andalusia, New Granada. Any isolated or delimited complex was then called island, without the need for it to be surrounded by water. It was said island of houses, not apple. I guess that's a mistranslation. And one of the lawsuits of Diego Colon claiming the 10th of the entire coast of the Tierra Firme. So he 10%. That's Columbus' son. He want 10% of all the monies coming from this. Was on the islands of the Darien. So they call it islands of the Darien at that time. They were calling some of all the islands of Africa. The Africa of the islands, or the Canary of the rivers. So the Darien is right here. Like Virginia would call islands at 1.2 the Virginia Islands. And they changed that because our understanding of what island is changed. Punta de Gale, which is like the port of the Gale, or Gala, or Galera, was and is northeast of Trinidad, to the south of the Galeota, or the P de la Galera. Cape Tres Puntas, 3 ports, Tripoli. As widely documented, it was in the vicinity of the Salinas de Araya, Venezuela. Appears in Paria in the 17th century. The species that produce purple, the murex and the murex, or murex. They are different sizes in Antilles. England had a part of this ancient trade and the Mediterranean provinces. Sailing off the coast in 1580, Sarmiento pointed to Sierra Leone at 8 degrees. They were a sack of slaves. And most likely it's this right here, the state of Sierra. The Rio Grande was called Del Loro. Loro means parrot. Remember we talked about that. Increasing the confusion, Chavez take away the El Oro and called them Del Oro. The fifths are 5% granted by Enrique VI to the Herrera and Saavedra, like the outcasts imposed by Alonso de Lugo when he was governor of the Barbary, are the same taxes charged by the Muslim Sharif of Sus. Now, that tell her that that's who been here first already operating business. The Sharifs of the Sus. She got all that at the same place, going all the way from Herrera and Saavedra. She traced them through him to Alonso de Lugo, and going all the way back before him, the Moors of what they call the Sus. So she know that's what happened. And the Portuguese and their conquest. San Borodon mentioned the kingdoms of the 7 cities. Let's go look that up before we continue. Wikipedia give us a understanding of things, not the understanding, but a. Cibola, Alquibola, Alquibolan, Alquibola, same thing. So you know they're talking about this area, America, North America. You can see also say New Granada, showing you widespread Moors. On both sides. So you see he mentioned the kingdom of the 7 cities, attributing its foundation to as many Visigoth bishops who fled from Spain when Islam penetrated. Alfonso V granted Francisco Tellus the islands that he discovered to the west of the Atlantic, with the exclusion of those included in Guinea and the conquest of Castile. So basically he going to North America because Portugal and Spain already been dealing with South America just to stay away from their concessions. And this is all Roman minions try to do the same thing they're doing in the Punic Wars towards Carthage Empire. They declared war on Portugal by the Catholic in 1475. Tellus was authorized to conquer the kingdom of the 7 cities and keep it as a hereditary seigneurial. Again, to seigneurials in later videos. The emperor, tired of revolts, prohibited in 1526 introducing Ladino blacks in the Indies, understanding by such those who reside a year in the peninsula, Iberia, because they spoil the bodies, advising them restlessness and disobedience to their master. So basically, even the Christian Moors, even the Moors who were from the Iberian Peninsula speaking either Hebrew or Latin or whatever, they still ain't not want them in the Indies, because they been, so the Moors who they had enslaved must have been converted to the point where they ain't know nothing. But they don't want these Moors right here around them, because they been teaching them stuff. That, hold up, you don't need to be working for him. You can do this and do that. Shortly after the importation of slaves, so-called, was forbidden, the scarcity of arms forced them to consent to it in 1532, excluding the Berbers and the blacks themselves, those who are called Gelofes. So those groups, they don't want them there. They don't want no Berbers on these Spanish plantations. They don't want Moors, because Moors know how to do the work, but they don't want Moors who've been known as Berbers and Gelofes for being arrogant and rebellious. In 1550, these just Moors who know who the hell they are. They ain't gonna be fucking playing with Rome or kind of way Spaniards. In 1550, Carlos reclosed the Indies to the blacks of the American East, which had been a whole lot of Moorish lands at that time still. Brazil, all the way down Argentina. Because he understood that some of them were from the coast of the Moors or that they dealt with them. And that in the new land where the Santa Fe new land, quote unquote, Catholic were planted, it was not convenient for them to pass people of this quality. So again, just like the Jolofs and the Latinos and all these other people, Berbers, they don't want they trying to keep their jurisdictions a certain way. It was not convenient for them to pass those quality people quality, even if they were of the black caste of Guinea. With few sailors, say as long as they ain't Moors, as long as they know they Moors, you can bring them. And if they know they Moors, they don't bring them to these colonies, because all they gonna do is free all the people. With few soldiers, with few sailors, Felipe II had to allow in 1572. So they ain't had no sailors, so they had to use people who had know how to sail, which been Moors who still been in Europe. That the merchant ships should carry 2 or 3 Moors from Guinea, which is in America, and their children, on the condition that they do not remain in the Indies. So he had need them to learn how to even to sail these, to make these things. But the thing is, he didn't want them coming from these lands going into his territories of the Indies. We had these converted Moors on these slave camps because they would rebel and freedom. Like it's like Django when he had walk on the plantation and look around like this shit crazy, and he ended up freeing them. That's why they didn't want people like him around. They had the operation going good, so he got around. And now some more. We're definitely gonna free them from Rome. So we're gonna stop right there. And we're gonna get into even more detail. But this way here give us a lot of definition of the terms that we're gonna be seeing. African, slave, blacks. And we're gonna go into the terms they hide and show you all this. And so, peace to next time we get a little bit more into the religion side too. What happens during that, the Holy Wars. And the Asiento, we get deep into who take these contracts, private and public entities, corporations, companies take these contracts to bring in this workforce to fulfill this contract. And just miners, farmers, they can turn them to all kind of different names, blacksmiths, and that's your slave trade. And the only thing gonna get you reparations is the truth, because that only thing will set you free. To know, and to know you will set yourself free mentally. So peace till next time.